Alright, hello, you guys, you Riven mains and Yasuo mains alike. I am the Nightwing, Way of Life Esports, coming at you guys with another League of Legends video. So, yeah, today I get to talk about my other favorite esports team in League of Legends, G2 Esports. It only feels like just yesterday I watched these guys burst onto the scene in League of Legends as the bad boys when it was called the EULCS, completely take it over by storm, win 4 splits in a row. They lose out in 2018, but they did make the final in spring and they did make world semifinals. Then in 2019, they have their hashtag we got to get back up. That was a hashtag. You have to get back up, and then they got back up. Actually, they won both splits for 2019. They even won an international title by winning MSI 2019, and they became one of the best Western League of Legends teams of all time. You have them up there with the likes of Moscow 5. You have them up there with the likes of the Fnatic from 2015 as well. And so you actually have a really good roster, and going into this up-and-coming EU split, which is going to be the LEC spring split, Caps and Perks have decided to role swap, but to be fair, they are able to, switch out in the game with basically, if Caps wants to play a champion mid, he can just go mid, and if Perks wants to play something bot, he can still go bot. But I think that's something that a lot of people haven't really brought up. They can still do that. It's just that Perks will probably primarily be playing more mid lane than AD carry. So where do you actually start with this team? So there has been a lot to discuss with this team, because overall, being the best roster in your region for almost literally 9 months can obviously have its downsides. And that's what a lot of people don't actually understand, is that when you have the same roster together for quite some time, there can be problems built up. But as we have seen from a lot of their content, a lot of their mic checks, a lot of their streams, if you watch Captain Perks or Yanko's stream, they obviously like each other. They obviously want to be around each other. And that is something that a lot of other super teams don't actually have. They don't have that friendship thing where outside the game, if you don't really like that person, you might not really want to play with that person on the Rift. And the whole friendship angle doesn't really bode out too well in a said argument with a lot of other rosters. But sometimes having friends in your own team really does do something for a lot of players. It makes you want to play well together, and we saw that, and we saw that with the other EU rosters that have won EU. And the issue with this one is that maybe they're going to be challenged this year. Possibly, because it's really hard to say with all these other lackluster rosters built around, EU and the other squads. Now, I think that the only competition they're really going to have is between Origin, Rogue, and Fnatic. Outside of those three, I think G2 will most likely still win the up-and-coming LEC spring split. They still have the best players in pretty much every single position, and if they don't have the best players in every single position, they still have literally top 3 players in every single position. Just that alone gives you an edge. People need to understand the reason why people rank a lot of the Asian and the Korean and the Chinese teams fairly highly when it comes to the Western teams is because if you have really strong laners in each and every position, you get such a massive advantage. It's not like basically having Pole Belter or players like Yarnin and Wadid in your lane where you have to have weaknesses and then you have other things you have to basically cover up to make them look better. No, if you just have obligatory stronger players, you do get better results, and that has been a consistent thing throughout League of Legends history, is that having really strong world-class players really do give you results in your roster. Now, this is going to be a problem going into this year, is that are they going to get basically fatigued of just being the best in Europe? Now, that is obviously a thing we really can't predict for, because they love playing League. If you look at their Twitters, their Instagrams, their Twitches when they're playing, they just love playing League. So I really don't think that's going to be an actual factor to the reason why they would ever possibly fail this year. And going from all of what they had to go through, they had to conquer so much. Back in 2017 MSI, they lost to SKT, and they were able to trump SKT twice in 2019. They really weren't able to get out of groups. They finally got out of groups. They didn't really go far in Worlds. They finally got far in Worlds. They lost to IG in 2018, and so in 2019 they got to World Finals, and they as players know how to really get over a lot of things, and even adjusting to the lane swap last year, which is what a lot of people had a lot of problems with, paid off. Perkz, I don't think Perkz was ever like best in the world. Please don't let what other people in their blind retardation, as that what a lot of people usually have. Perkz wasn't a best ADC in the world, because clearly there are other better ADCs. They just didn't go to Worlds, or you just didn't really watch the regions to really pay attention to them. Perkz was a really good individual AD carry. He wasn't the best, but he was really good and really actually took his new position by storm. He played really well. He wasn't exactly the most, let's say, his champion pool wasn't really as big in terms of the AD carry spot, but since he already played a lot of mid laners in his years as a mid laner, it really didn't matter. He could have literally, and he did, just play mages in the bot, and he did, and they won a lot of games off playing mages. Actually, the major best of fives they actually won, which was against SKT, and they won Origin the same way. He played mages in the bot lane. He didn't really play ADCs. So this is the thing that is really good for the team. They are very flexible, and they can pretty much do anything you could ask for in a Western League of Legends team. And this is the problem with them, is that they have said that playing against the Eastern teams is that it's really hard, because bad Eastern teams that we look at when we watch LCK and LPL, a ton of Western players have said this, those 6th and 7th place LPL, LCK rosters would literally clap any of the first place teams from, well, EU and North America. Now, that is obviously hearsay, but I just don't think these guys would just obligatory lie just for the sake of lying. That wouldn't make you look good. Now, looking at how G2 prepare for their drafts, we know they like to draft early game skirmish comps. We know they like to obviously invade. We know they love diving bot, getting perks, or now caps in the bot lane ahead. So all of that is going to be translated into the new scene and how it's changing. So the map overall changed for League, and otherwise, from basically looking at that, we can also see that G2 last year were able to take all those changes and none of it really affect them. And as we saw from Kespa Cup and Demacia Cup, we saw that most of the changes don't really do much. Now, I want people to understand that. It's not that they're bad changes. It's just that if you're already getting smashed in lane, you're just going to lose like you did before. Having an extra bigger terrain or extra dragon entrances, those don't really matter personally. But now their macro is something that they need to improve on. That is something that, from being their fan and I've watched, they need to improve on their macro a lot more. Yes, you can beat your opponent early on, but if you can't beat them early on, they have shown that it really can't fall through with them. In one of the games against SKT in their semifinal at Worlds, the game where SKT won, they fell behind early and just couldn't come back. They didn't really know how to do it, and that's the only issue they have, is that they have a few other issues, but that's their biggest one, is not knowing how to come back, and they don't really know too much macro. Like, you can play macro in the early game pretty easily from what a lot of people have said, but when it comes to the later stages of the game, if you're not exactly winning, it's really hard for them to actually show where they can really improve at, and that's where I thought they can improve at, from their 2019 run, is that macro really did hurt them, but hopefully this year they can fix their macro. Also, inting too hard was a problem they had, because there were certain games where they easily could have won, but they inted so hard that it was like, what the is this like bronze solo queue up in these games here? Like, crazy, right? All right, so let's go over the roster. So you have Wunder, who has been pretty good most of his career. He's been a pretty solid top laner. A lot of people were saying that he was one of the best Western top laners of pretty much since 2018. I would agree with that to a lot of extent. He's been really good. He is really flexible. He can be a team player. He can also play weak side. He can lose gracefully and still help you win. He is pretty much just a better version of Licorice if Licorice knew how to do other things a little bit better, because I feel like Wunder is a complete player, which is what a lot of other top laners in EU are not, and that bodes with how he likes to play the game. As we have seen, he can play weak side, fairly aggressive. He can still lose and still be an impact in the game, and that's what I respect out of loving top lane myself. Top lane is my favorite role in League, because if you lose top lane, you can still do things. And players like Wonder have lost top lane and are still able to roam around the map, do stuff. You just don't want to sit there and be useless. And I like that about certain players, is that even if you lose, hey, you lose, it's all good. Go do something else. Because you staying in your lane is going to make you lose more, because you can't obviously beat your opponent. It's really good for top laners to show that quality. I thought his TPs were obviously incredible, to a certain point where, you know, every time he is TPing, he's making an impact. He did make some flub plays at Worlds and a lot of flub plays at MSI, but he has shown that he can be almost an MVP level quality player. And yep, that's pretty much it for Wonder. Jankos is our first Blood King. So Jankos has been, I don't know, it's really hard to say, because Jankos showed a lot in EU, but when it came to Worlds, and just only Worlds, he looked pretty out of sorts. He was, in my consensus, if you wanted to rank a Dade award, I would give it to Jankos, I would give it to Hylissang, or I would give it to, I wouldn't say Faker personally, but Faker would be somewhere in there. But Jankos, if you wanted to give a Dade award for just junglers, Jankos would get it, because he really didn't play that well at Worlds, but he does play really well in his own, you know, region. So in his own region, he's touted as one of the best, or if not the best jungler, and he did win MVP, just like Svenskeren did on Cloud9. Both of my junglers won MVPs. That was actually pretty cool though. But his only issues is that he likes to gank consistently. He likes to pressure a lot of lanes. He passed very effectively. But now, if you fall behind, just as basic as the game would seem to a lot of people, you actually are fairly far behind. You are fairly weak. You're just basically a walking bag of gold at that point. But Jankos has an issue, I think, with, it's really hard to say. His issues don't really stem from like mechanical issues or anything like that. It mostly stems from actually getting outpathed. Like that, like just in actually being smarter than your opposition. But I don't really think in EU he really will get outpathed. His problem internationally was that he always got outpathed, he always got outjungled, he always got, basically, he was always second to the ganks, second to the dives, there's always that. So if he can stay consistent like he was all throughout 2019 and when he won MVP, then obviously he can be one of the best junglers in EU yet again. So Caps and Perks, I'm probably going to have to talk about these guys differently. So let's just go to Mickey X and then I'll go to Caps and Perks. Mickey X, hands down best support in EU, as he has shown. Also was considered a really good, mechanically great support when he was on teams like Misfits and teams like Splice. At Worlds, he did struggle a little bit there, but he managed to pull through, and he played consistently well all year. Pretty much, I would say an MVP level quality support as well. There's nothing really there's nothing he really did that really made you feel like, man, this guy actually fucking sucks. You know, he's great. His issue, I think, is laning. So people always say he's mechanically very gifted. Yes, but his laning has always been an issue in terms of if there's just a player who's better at laning than him, not mechanical skill, it will show. Because Perks and Mickey had an issue with getting outlaned fairly consistently throughout last year. If they weren't even just disrespecting their opponents, it was just more along the lines of, if this person is just better at laning, you could see their flaws. But Mickey X overall, great player. He wants to play with these guys, and it shows, and how he communicates with them, and how he actually roams around the map consistently, how him and Caps basically were one of the best mid and bot duos in the league, and it definitely showed. So let's talk about Perks. Perks, the overall one of the best Western mid laners, and one of the best Western players ever so far. He is going back to the mid lane, and he was already a really good mid laner, so I don't think that the switch really is going to affect him that much. But that actually poses into Caps. Caps playing bot. I want people to notice, and I want people to actually realize this. Just because Perks did it doesn't mean Caps can. I want to make that fundamentally clear. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm saying that just because one person did do it doesn't mean he will. Just want to put that out there, because a lot of people say that, oh, well, Perks did it, so that means Caps can. No. That's not how that works. You have to prove that you're able to do it first, then you judge off that. You can't say, oh, he did it, that means he can't too. Like, we have no merit of Caps playing 80 carries. Like, do you notice that? But if you're saying playing just bot lane mages, sure, I'll say he'll be pretty good at it. And obviously, Caps is a very good individually skilled mid laner. He does a lot of great things for mid laners. Playmaker, individual, roaming is great. He's always more or less so winning lanes. He likes to innovate in the lane as well. He'll pick random shit that you probably never even thought of that could be played mid, obviously. And I think that overall, this core of G2 is still the best team in EU. I mean, you have Perks, who can play pretty much anything. Cats, pretty much anything. Wonder, pretty much anything. Mickey X, he'll play anything. Yankos, they'll probably just put him on Sejuani duty, but he'll be really good in general. So where does this team go? Is it Worlds or bust? I don't really like expectations like that, like Worlds or bust, because let's say if you have a really good year, like they did, you know, like they had spring, summer, MSI. Does that mean if you don't win Worlds, then your whole year was a disappointment? So let's say this year they win spring and summer, and then they win MSI again. This is just a hypothetical. And let's say they don't win Worlds for 2020, right? Does that mean that your whole year was a disappointment again? Like, I don't like to look at stuff like that. I love the org and I love this team, but I don't want it to be looked at as a bad year if you didn't win Worlds. Like, I understand it sucks and it hurts really bad, but you shouldn't look at it like that. You should look at it as you did really well all year. You were considered one of the best teams in League of Legends as a Western team. Do you know how hard it is for people to even get behind Western teams at all? This was one of the first Western teams that we ever had that were predicted to win an international event. I want people to fundamentally understand that. You just don't get Western teams that are power ranked to win international events. Like, most Western teams have really glaring issues that they just really can't overcome in order to actually win international events. That's why they don't win. There's other reasons, obviously, but that's kind of a main core one. They had things that were so good about them that people were like, this team is really good. They're going to win MSI. They're going to almost win Worlds. I had them at, where did I have them at in my Worlds power rankings? I had them at first. They got second. Hey, I mean, I was close. I was real close, though. I had FPX at third, SKT at second. So, I mean, hey, I'm a prediction god at that point. But, yeah, I just don't want people saying stupid crap like, oh, well, they did blah, 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 blah. I mean, where was your team at while my team was in the finals facing FPX? Oh, yeah, your team was at home on their computers, sitting on their assholes, jerking off, right? Yeah, that's where your team was. So shut up. No one knows what they're talking about. This G2 roster had a better shot at winning finals than Fnatic did against IG. Eventually, I'm gonna make that video where I'm talking about Fnatic stood no chance against IG, and that might come up as very, very hypocritical because obviously I do support another European team, but it's no hate towards anybody. Fnatic stood no chance, and I mean no chance against IG in 2018. I don't care how lucky of a run you had, you stood no chance against IG. Did G2 stand a chance against IG at all? Not even close either, but I'll make the video eventually. But back to the point. This team is, in my own personal opinion, still going to win spring. Are they going to win summer? Most likely. You know, I just don't really see them getting overcome until it actually happens. And I would put other teams over them if they actually had good enough rosters to be put over them. Because that happened last year too. People were like, oh, well, Misfits could be better because of, you know, stylistic differences. Or Fnatic could be better because of, you know, stylistic differences. But that really doesn't really matter if they can't win consistently. It's just a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't really factor into. I think these guys are still the best Western team in League of Legends going into this year. I think they have their sights set on winning Worlds because they already won an international title. Lots of Western teams really can't even win that, so that's already a big step in the right direction. Also, they beat the top 3 Korean seeds that Korea sent, and the only one they couldn't beat in a best of 5 was Griffin because they already had Griffin in their group. Like, there's just been no Western team that has ever done that. Like, factor that in. The top 3 Korean teams that Korea sent lost to this team. The only one they couldn't beat in a best of 5 was a team they already had in their own group. That should show people something, that this team has something that the other teams do not. And that's it, guys. That's it on my one of my favorite orgs in League of Legends, G2 Esports. They are the best team in EU, and these guys are going to take the world by storm again, in my own personal opinion. They almost won Worlds in 2019. Let's hope these guys can win spring. I think they're going to win spring. There's not much competition there for EU for them to really like make a difference, for a lot of the teams to kind of make a dent to them. Their dynasty will live on throughout 2020, and long live #G2 Army. So I see you guys later. Have a nice day. The Nightwing and Way of Life Esports is signing out. Goodbye. Also, the LEC and LCS are starting very, very soon. I'm going to have my power rankings out, and I'm going to get the rest of these teams finished as well. So I'll see you guys later. Bye. Have a good day, and that's it. Peace.
Hi there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.